Let's talk about how to accelerate data powered innovation within your enterprise. We will look at some of the key challenges that enterprises face and a 5 step journey that we have seen lots of successful businesses take to get to data powered innovation. We'll look at what enterprises encounter along the way and discuss how Google Cloud can help with examples. Hello, I'm Lak Lakshmanan. I lead analytics and AI solutions at Google Cloud. What are some of the key challenges that enterprises face, especially when it comes to data? Well, firstly, and probably the most important, is the size of data. The amount of data in most enterprises is growing dramatically, 20 to 30% year on year, such that when you look back after about 5 years, you're looking at about a 5x increase in the amount of data. And it's not just the size of the data. By 2025, a quarter of that data that you have is going to be real time in nature. And as you know, real time data is harder to manage and maintain than historical data. In addition, much of the data tends to be unstructured. And today, less than 1% of unstructured data is analyzed or even used. And so these are some of the key challenges when it comes to data and technology that's used to work with the data and then put in place the environment that we're in today. And you have unprecedented market shifts. And so you need to be able to analyze the data, process the data at increased velocity and scale if you want to power data power, innovation through your data. And so lots of enterprises are driving their data-driven business transformations using Google Cloud. So whether it's businesses in retail or gaming or financial services and all over the world, whether it's in the Americas or EMEA or Japan and APAC, we have experience helping leaders in all of these companies bring about data-driven change. And this consists of a 5 step process. And the first step is to stop the bleeding. You need to reduce the cost of managing data, especially as the data sizes grow dramatically. And one of the ways that you do that is by migrating a data lake and data warehouse to the cloud. Once you have your data centralized, the next bit is to break down silos within your organization, build a data culture to democratize analytics. And once you have everyone within your organization able to access the data, process it, the third stage of the journey is to be able to make decisions in context faster and in real time. And I'll talk about what I mean by in context. But once you're in this place where you're basically doing descriptive analytics as well as possible, it is then a time to move on to predictive and prescriptive analytics. And at that point, the first step in the journey is to look at end-to-end packaged AI solutions, to leapfrog, so that you're not building everything from scratch, but you're able to take advantage of what's already available in the marketplace. And finally, to be able to empower data-powered innovation that is truly differentiated by building and operationalizing AI. So let's walk through each of these steps and talk about what enterprises encounter along the way and some of the things that we have to do. The first step, as I said, is to find the budget to carry out data powered innovation. And in order to do that, you have to lower the cost of ownership, you have to simplify operations. And so that is the first stage on the journey to carrying out data powered innovation. The problem is that your traditional enterprise data warehouse implementations, they hinder business transformation. First of all, they can't scale fast enough to keep up with this 5x growth in data that we talked about. And secondly, as 25% of the data becomes streaming in nature, it becomes really important that all of your queries are on fresh data, and you need your data to be fresh. And that is a problem with a lot of enterprise data warehouse implementations. Thirdly, when we talk about breaking down silos and building a data culture, it is extremely important to make sure that you do that in a secure way. And oftentimes the way that security is done is it provides data access restrictions that inhibit collaboration between different parts of your enterprise. And of course, the cost of maintaining, and by cost, we don't just mean the software cost or license cost, but also the cost of operationalizing it. So you're basically spending a lot of time tuning the data warehouse rather than getting insights from it. And finally, we want to make ourselves ready to carry out machine learning and AI. And that is also something that traditional EDW implementations kind of hinder. So that's the reason why a lot of industry leaders rely on Google Cloud when it comes to modernizing their data. Whether it's Home Depot, who wanted to accelerate their time to value, or Zulily, who needed to be able to get instant insights for all of their offers that they create dynamically, or Hearst newspapers wanting to use advanced predictive and analytics AI, or AccuWeather, which is looking at sharing data not just within their organization, but with all of their partner organizations and to share and act those kinds of insights with ease, and doing all of this in a secure way, which like you want to be able to protect your data, operate it with trust, as HSBC does. The technological capabilities of Google Cloud, the fact that our data warehouse is serverless, it's self-tuning, that we offer you high performance streaming ingestion, that every SQL query is automatically streaming in nature, that you can operationalize machine learning without ever moving your data out of the data warehouse. This is what allows you to modernize your data architecture. And of course, all of this is set up from the premise that you need to find budget to carry out your data innovation. And that budget you're going to get because by migrating to the cloud, we can lower your total cost of ownership massively. So oftentimes more than a 50% reduction in cost. But it's not just about the data warehouse because data platforms and data roles are converging and they need to interoperate. So when we talk about a data warehouse today functions often as a data lake also. So where we traditionally used to have extract, transform, and load, these days you just extract and load directly into your data warehouse. And from there, you transform as necessary. And if you have Hadoop workloads in your data lake, you want those Hadoop workloads to be able to read data from your data warehouse. And vice versa. You might have queries in your data warehouse doing a federated query on your data lake. So your data lake and your data warehouse need to be interoperable and form the common data platform. And this is true not just from the technology, it is also true from the perspective of the people who are going to be using the data. So whether it is data analysts using business intelligence tools, or data scientists using a data science platform, or machine learning scientists and data scientists using TensorFlow and machine learning, they all need to be able to access data, whether it is in a data lake or whether it's in a data warehouse. That interoperability and this ability to build a data platform that combines both the data warehouse and the data lake are extremely important. And that is the way that we've designed Google Cloud's data platform. So our idea is that you need to be able to derive a return on investment from your data lake so that it's a business asset and not just an IT cost. So all of the things that I talked about in terms of modernizing a data warehouse, they apply to a data lake as well. You want to get large scale performance, you want to do this at a lower cost, you want to be able to reduce your operational complexity. You definitely want to make sure that you're protecting your data, that it's secure, that you're breaking down data silos between different parts of your organization, and they're using AI to extract value from all of your unstructured data. So whether it's Pandora or the Broad Institute or Metro, all of these people are building data lakes for their unstructured data, for their semi-structured data, and for their Hadoop workloads on Google Cloud such that it is a business asset. And for example, Dan Humby had a blog where they talked about how they were able to move from their traditional monolithic Hadoop cluster to ephemeral clusters. By ephemeral, we mean a cluster that is job specific and get a cost savings of over 75%. So again, the idea of moving your data lake and your data warehouse, the reason that it's your first stage in your journey is that it opens up the budget to do all of the rest of the innovation that you want to do. And in order to help you do that, we have a low risk offer to migrate and modernize your enterprise data warehouses and your data lakes. So if it's a data warehouse, we have ways to virtualize and translate your queries automatically and optimize and reduce your cost. If it's a data lake, we have ways to lift and shift and then move towards ephemeral clusters and then moving into a completely serverless system. Once you have moved your data warehouse and your data lake to the cloud, the next step is to look at how to democratize data access and build a data culture within your organization. To talk about the kind of benefits that you get, take, for example, HSBC, where they had to calculate the liquidity position of a country. It used to take them 10 hours to do, but they were able to do it in less than 30 minutes. Then they were able to do financial crime analytics using BigQuery 10 times faster. But the reason they were able to do all this was because they were able to move their workloads to GCP such that all of their teams around the world had access to capabilities to help them innovate. So we see the result of the innovation, but the reason that that is possible is because of this democratization and of the breaking down of data silos. And if you're a company that needs to move your data to the cloud, you want to make sure that you're moving it in such a way and breaking down your data silos in such a way that you have strong security and governance controls, right? Especially when we talk about, well, we want to basically provide access to data for any team who can access it, who's allowed to access it. You want to make sure that all of your data is encrypted in transit and rest. If there's not a bucket out there that's somehow left open, that you're able to bring in your own encryption keys, that you're able to use Cloud DLP for classifying and redacting sensitive data. You're able to discover data, that all of your data that you're putting on the cloud is subject to third-party audits and certifications. If you need to be HIPAA compliant, that you can be HIPAA compliant. And finally, that if someone accesses the data, there's access transparency so that you can go look at the audit logs and you know who has accessed it, when they accessed it, and why they accessed it. So when you're moving data and you want to make sure that your data is available to a broad set of your organization, one of the key problems is, how do I know what data I have? And that's where data catalog comes in. We have a simplified data discovery mechanism such that you can go ahead and find what data sets you have. And data catalog has built-in governance that you can, for example, say you can tag pieces of data, not necessarily entire tables, not necessarily entire data sets, but just columns, and say these columns are sensitive data, and you can govern sensitive data across the organization in a simple, straightforward, consistent way. But one of the things that happens is, as you build your data warehouse on the cloud, you start to centralize your data. You bring your data from SAP, from Teradata, from Oracle, from YouTube, from Google Ads, and you centralize them into the data warehouse. The data warehouse on Google Cloud is called BigQuery. Once it's centralized there, what many organizations find is that they start to see analytic silos. So rather than carry out the analysis in the data warehouse itself, you see people taking extracts of the data, throwing it into spreadsheets, throwing it into dashboards, and all of these things start to become slightly out of date. So the next step is to look at how can we do analytics in a modern way. And the way to do that is to apply governance and control to your KPIs. And so we're looking at modern BI and analytics such that you can have dashboards with tiles that are shared across your organization, reports and self-service definitely, but all of their self-service reports and exploration take advantage of centrally built KPIs. And this allows you to take insights and embed them into websites and existing applications, and also build data-driven workflows and custom applications with it. So it's one thing to centralize your data, but you also need to look at, how do I centralize the analytics on the data? How do I make sure that those analytics themselves are reusable, instead of everybody writing their own Excel formulas, of everybody writing their own SQL queries? And this is again something that a lot of our customers have found great benefit in. Credit Karma, for example, says there used to be a lot of Excel spreadsheets floating around, and now it's all in Looker. and under common governance, or Auto Trader talking about democratization of how they were in a matter of weeks able to go from nothing to something that was usable by all of their sales squads. Okay. So the third step then, so the first step is to move your data to the cloud. Second step is to open up access and build a data culture. And the third step, now that now everyone has access to the data, the third step is to be able to make decisions in context faster and with real-time AI. So one of the key things when we talk about context is that location is incredibly important. When we look at tabular data from most enterprises, we see that about 15% of tables tend to have location information in them, store locations, customer information, etc. And you need to be able to do accurate spatial analysis within your data warehouse. You don't want to have a separate geospatial database. And that's one of the key things that we can do, is that you can analyze GIS data with familiar SQL, part of your dashboards, and be able to incorporate location information, because location is incredibly important context. The second big piece of context is time. So real-time data is very, very, very valuable. So there's a big difference between being able to act on a loan 3 days later, or being able to make a decision on a loan within a matter of minutes or within a matter of seconds. Real time is real value. And whether it's in e-commerce or in gaming or in manufacturing or in retail, you want to be able to make decisions as quickly as possible. And in order to do that, again, we start with the data warehouse. But the key thing to realize is that in the data warehouse on Google Cloud, every SQL query is automatically streaming. So all of the investments that you have done to get to the point of democratizing access and building dashboards and building common analytics, all of these actually work in real time as well. What we need to do is to make sure that you're ingesting, transforming, and enriching the data and streaming it into the data warehouse. And that's something that we do naturally in Google Cloud, because both PubSub and Dataflow, just like BigQuery, are all serverless. They are very easy to operate, very low cost, and you can spend all of your time getting insights from the data rather than on operationalizing and on the IT infrastructure of building a messaging system or building a data system. And once you have your data in the data warehouse, you can do machine learning directly in the data warehouse. You don't have to move your data out of your data warehouse. And this allows you to carry out machine learning as part of your streaming analytics pipelines for things like anomaly detection, for example. And this is an incredible benefit, because normally when we talk about machine learning, we're talking about a data science team that has to replicate all of this data. And whenever you replicate data, you run into a security issue, right? You have two copies of your data floating around. So BigQuery machine learning, by allowing you to do machine learning directly in your data warehouse, enhances your security posture, enhances your access transparency. And this is exactly what AB Tasty, for example, was able to do. They have 25 user sessions per day. They need to analyze 50 billion events, and they wanted to make better decisions and obtain increased revenue. And in order to do that, they were able to basically personalize access to large volumes of data within their company to basically carry out machine learning operations. So at this point then in the journey, you have the ability to have a data culture to be able to make decisions in context, spatial context, temporal context. And then the next step is to say, okay, how can we now do more prescriptive analytics? And at that point, you want to say, you want to look around the marketplace. It's not necessarily that you have to build every piece of AI that you need. What can you buy? Because when you buy, you can leapfrog. And at Google Cloud, we have lots of readily embeddable AI models. So, if, for example, if you want to process video and you want to do video classification or action recognition or object tracking, you don't need to go build this from scratch. We have an API that you can use, and you can use it directly and in your applications. For example, if you want to do translation, right, you don't need to go build your own translation model. Bloomberg, for example, every time a new news article comes in, they need to send a global update to 40 in 40 languages to over 170 countries, and they do that through Google Translate. And so the idea here is that Bloomberg is quite capable of building their own translation model, but they didn't. Instead, what they did was that they bought it. And similarly, right, if you want to improve the performance of your contact center, there are three things that you want to be able to do. You want to be able to look at standard queries and automate them as much as possible. And if a query is handled by a call center agent, you want to make sure that that query gets handled the first time correctly. You want to improve the customer service of your support organization by providing the call center agent all of the information that they need as soon as they need it. And finally, you also want to use the support calls that are coming in to understand your business better. And this is again something that you could build from scratch, but why do that when you can leapfrog ahead with the contact center AI solution from Google Cloud? And that's what Ticketmaster does, for example, or that's what Marks and Spencer does, where they're basically taking advantage of our contact center AI solution to improve their customer service. Similarly, if you have forms and you want to extract information from forms, you want to do form parsing, you could build it from scratch, or you could use our document AI solution and leapfrog ahead and allow us to basically carry out all of the hard work of doing natural language processing and building AI, etc. Then, for example, if you want to do claims processing, here's an insurance company that was able to use our document AI to get an incredible reduction in the claims processing and settlement time by, again, leapfrogging. So, the key thing with AI is to think about what kinds of things do I need to build and what kinds of things can I buy. And when it comes to buying AI models, you want to buy AI models that are high quality, that have been battle tested, and that's something that you can get out of our platform. The fifth step, then, at this point, you have prescriptive analytics, but the prescriptive analytics that you have is primarily things that you're able to buy. The last step of the journey to doing data powered innovation is to empower your data and machine learning teams and give them the tools for them to be successful. So let's step back a bit and think about, wait, I talked about leapfrogging with AI, and now I'm talking about custom AI. And the idea is that in your organization, you're going to have a portfolio of business use cases. Not everything needs to be built from scratch, and not everything can be bought. So you need to look at your use cases and make a determination of those use cases on three criteria. How fast do you want it? How much effort do you want to put in? And how much differentiation does this business use case offer? And based on that, it allows you, then you choose whether you want to use a fully prepackaged AI model, or do you want to take a bunch of building blocks and combine them in a bespoke way, or do you want to build custom AI that is fully differentiated? And regardless of which of these you want to do, we have a platform that allows you to do it, that gives you the ability to do it. And we can partner with you to help you on this journey of whether it's using AI out of the box or using or building up on top of our building blocks like AutoML and BigQuery ML and the Vision API, etc., or whether you want to do custom AI. But the idea here is that you will have lots of applications that are collecting and storing data into the data lake and data warehouse. That is the first part of your journey to doing data powered innovation. And having done that, then you basically arm your data science teams to be able to build and use AI and build and use AI regardless of whether it is AI out of the box or building blocks or custom AI, being able to take it, experiment with it, generate insights from it. But once you start to see that this data science team is being successful in the development phase, you need to have the ability to promote it and operationalize the machine learning. And that's what we call ML ops, to be able to do this routinely, to be able to monitor and retrain the model when the models start going out of sync because of changes in the environment of the data. And that, for example, eBay, for example, uses custom AI, the third part of my model, where you want to do visual product search. And at that point, they're training an image classifier on 55 million product images to get a 10% increase in image recognition accuracy. And 10% is an incredible increase in accuracy, but able to do that 10 times faster because of the amazing hardware called TPUs that are available on cloud. Again, Google Cloud, incredibly differentiated in terms of both our data platform and in terms of our AI platform. So when you are taking your journey to enable data-powered innovation within your organization, we can help you derive value at every step of the journey, whether it's to reduce TCO in the first stage, whether it's to democratize analytics in the second stage, whether it's to be able to make higher value decisions in the third stage, whether it's being able to leapfrog your competition in the fourth stage, or being able to really create differentiated transformative AI in the fifth stage. We're happy to work with you at every step of the journey. Thank you.